like to call the meeting to order, and we will be led in our Pledge of Allegiance by Commissioner Crush, or not Commissioner Crush, Administrator Crush.
You got it in
There we go.
motion.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I thought you almost gave him a demotion.
Pretty close. It was close. I do apologize for that. Welcome to the April 9th Nicollet County Commission Board meeting. And on our agenda, we have the approval of the agenda.
So moved.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carries unanimously. I believe our next item up is our county attorney doing a presentation.
I'm going to defer a bit to Darcy Kaufman. As the board is aware, every year we do a food challenge for the March food shelf drive. And this is our third year, and we wanted today to present we do a competition amongst staff in the departments to see who can gather the most food. And this year, the commissioners did contribute a significant sum of money, and we've got peanut butter balls as a thank you for that. But our department that succeeded for the second year in a row of having our cream of the crop trophy, I'll have them come forward and have Darcy complete.
It is from Nicollet Environmental with an average department weight of 38.33 pounds. And here's your trophy. I would like to add that the total weight that Nicollet County did bring in this year was 665 pounds, and the total monetary donations that we raised for the food shelf this year was $1,560. Wow.
Good.
Cool.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for your effort, and thank you for all of the participants and their generosity to the food shelf. We appreciate that. We have the introduction of some new employees. Cassie is with us, and faces we don't know.
Good morning.
Good morning, Cassie.
I will actually defer to Jennifer to introduce our new waiver team members.
Good morning, Jennifer.
Good morning. I'm here to introduce our two newest waiver staff members. First, we have Christy Nyson. Christy came to us from Sibley County. She is a caddy case manager and certified assessor. And Tori Bruger, whose first day was yesterday. Tori comes to us from Blue Earth County and again is going to be working with a little bit of our over 65 programs and our caddy waivers, and is also a certified assessor.
Super.
Yes.
Questions amongst the board? Could we just ask for a brief who you are and how you got here?
Yeah, sure. So like Jennifer said, I'm from Sibley County. I'm from Gaylord. My boyfriend and I actually just bought a house in St. Peter, so we'll be making our home here. Yeah, I'm just looking forward to serving the clients in Nicollet County.
Super.
Thank you.
I'm a licensed social worker. I worked at Blue Earth County for 5 years, and before that I was at Lutheran Social Service doing care coordination with the under 65 population, and I live in Le Sueur. So.
Well, welcome both of you. Welcome to the county as employees, but for those that are moving here, welcome also. Thank you. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Commissioners, I'd like to introduce you to Cody Johnson. He's our new facilities director. Just started a week and a half ago. And Cody, you want to give him some background on your past experience?
Yeah, I come from a property management company in Mankato that I was a director for some hotels and some student housing and some retail. And I live in Upper North Mankato. I've been in the area for 15 years, so.
Jack is your commissioner.
Yeah.
So.
Hi, Cody.
How you doing?
They always want to know which employees are in their district.
Okay.
So.
Potential voters.
Yeah.
Well, welcome.
Thank
you
you
very much for joining us.
Yeah, Cody's a Lake Crystal Welcome Memorial graduate, and as I always say when we hire those graduates from that high school, we've had such great success.
Is that what you are?
Isn't that where you came from?
So I'm
Aren't you
sure
the
he'll be
only
outstanding
one?
like the other Lake Crystal.
Well, now we have
graduates.
two, right? Now we have two. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Thank you. Welcome.
Show me how the chair works. Our next item of business is the consent agenda, after Jack masters his phone.
I move the consent agenda.
We have a
Second.
motion. We have a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carries unanimously. Thank you very much. We now reach our public appearances. We would ask those that would like to speak, please limit your comments to 3 minutes. We will have a timer. Please, when you come to the microphone, we ask you to seat in the chair. Please state your name and your address for the record. Who do we have up first? Good morning.
Morning. Charles Johnson, 44259 360th Street, St. Peter, Minnesota.
Very good.
I'm here about the 62A ditch project. I'm in the north side of 22, so I was in the start in 2017. It wasn't completed as proposed at that time, and they did some more work last year, and it still isn't completed, and we're into the third year now. They hauled in more fill last year and re-cleaned the ditch. They still need to groom and level around the pond and down branch 5 and 6. The last time I saw somebody from ISG late last fall there, they talked about having a meeting where they would tell us what was going to be going on this year, and that hasn't happened. So we're kind of in the dark about what needs to be done completely and who's going to do it and when they're going to do it. We're coming up into planting, so we have to decide if we're going to plant it and maybe have it destroyed later or leave it or whatever other option. And then we wonder if it's into a third year, is there crop damage or money in hand to cover crop damage for a third year when it was only supposed to be a 2-year project? And I guess we'd surely like to see the project wrapped up. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Johnson.
Thank you.
We have additional individuals that like to speak. Henry?
Henry Martins, 53988 County Road 15, Lafayette, Minnesota. I guess this is the only means I have to talk to you because you've cut me off on everything else. I guess I'd like to start, just review a few things. One of the things is the ditch system along County Road 82. SEF took that away in the reconstruction. That was the only means of drainage until 1969. He claims there was never a ditch there. That ditch was there when that road was a township road. The second thing is a tile line that was ordered in by the commissioners and Robert Copton. That tile line is not on grade. I can't use it. It holds 10.5 inches of water in the intake and 200 feet to the south, which way the water runs, the tile line is dry. To go back to where I need to hook up is about another 500 feet at a 2% grade. That's another 10 inches. It needs to be lowered. Going down to ditch number 32A, I asked for a culvert through that road. SEF denied that. That culvert was not adequate way back in its time. The water ran over the road 10 inches deep when we had a heavy rain. Now you come in and rebuilt 82 raised it 4 feet, so you're flooding out 100 acres of my land. The residue from everything west of me comes down. My corn yield has dropped from about 220 down to that 140 some bushels. My beans are from 0 to 32 in that ground out area. It don't work. I got thousands of acres of water. They just come in there now, and well, 2 years ago they give them the right to put in a 24-inch culvert tile line back into the housers and wingers. That it wasn't adequate to handle that to start with. Now they've come in, Winnegar's got a big tile line. There's probably another 400 or 500 acres of water coming now. I can't have that. I can't make a living on it. I've asked you people to do something. I had a letter from the county attorney saying that I should have been at a meeting. She was told what happened. I kind of don't want to tell you, but I will. That was a day that my wife was going through a procedure of dying. I couldn't be here. She put it in a letter that it wasn't right. I've been over here to try to get this gentleman to set up an appointment. I've been in that office how many times? Never once. I left him a telephone number, I left him my address, tried to get an appointment set up to talk to. Never happened. I've tried to talk to different gentlemen here. John, the last time he comes out of the house, he says, I can't talk to you, I can't talk to you. Why am I blacklisted? This has got to be done differently. Every one of you people up here in front filed for this position. You swore under oath to uphold the law. You haven't done it, not in my part. Right now, I feel as though I would have the right to ask for the resigning of every one of you members because you haven't held up to what you're supposed to. Seth has lied about 3 or 4 different things. The little wedge thing with the trees on over there, he said, I don't own it. Yes, I've owned it. I've paid taxes.
Mr. Chair, do we need to listen to more than 3 minutes of someone accusing our people of wrongdoing when we don't know that that happened?
Your time.
Is my time up?
Your time is up.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Any additional public hearings? We have one. Sorry. Thank you, Maury. Good morning.
Good morning. Byron Norrell, 344-974 and 41st Avenue, Gaylord. Ditch 62 again. We've been, I echo some of the same concerns Charles has. Things we keep telling Nate Henry and ISG and things that just aren't getting done. And we agree with what they're saying. They are going to take it to places, but the contractor's not getting it done. The township, I'm also on the town board, and the township road, they were going to gravel and...
I'm sorry, what township?
New Sweden Township.
New Sweden, okay.
I believe it's 361st Avenue and also 441st Avenue.
Okay.
They were gonna gravel them and they haven't gravelled them, and we've been holding off because if we gravel, we won't get paid. So, just concerns. We've been in good contact with Nate, and Nate has been trying for us, but it's just not happening. So, and we have on our own personal property ditch banks where they widen the ditch, and that dirt isn't, like Charles says, will we get the 3rd year damages, or what will happen there? So, thanks.
Thank you. Please.
I'm Harlan Nelson, and my address is 44 727 306th Street. And I'm talking, and just saying the same as Charles and Byron. And we can talk to Nate Henry, and he seems to be our spokesman. And he doesn't, nobody wants to listen to him either from Hutton or from Ellingson. And we've had several crews working on a ditch, but it doesn't seem to get any further along. We've got tile intakes not in the wet spots. They're next to it, maybe 40, 50 feet away from it. So they need to do a lot of regrading. And it just seems like nothing is getting done properly, and I know it's just frustrating for all of us. And we don't know if it's, they all pass the buck, and it just goes in one ear and out the other. And now today I've got to go down to Mankato I have some drainage in my throat. But if it says Dr. Hutton and Dr. Ellingson, I'm not going to go in the door. So, okay, that's all I got to say.
Thank you, Mr. Nelson. Do we have any additional speakers? Please step forward.
Good morning. Donald McGinnis, 22119 519th Avenue, Lake Crystal, Minnesota. I own property that 62A is affected by. Also, I just want to stress that it's my understanding the original contract read that if the project was not wrapped up by January 1st, 2019, then penalties would be paid. And I want to make sure that however long this drags out, those penalties are enforced, even through the winter months when they couldn't do anything because the project was supposed to be completed. It was not completed. We should be paid for every day past January 1st that this project was not done. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. McGinnis. Any additionals? Last call. Seeing or hearing none, we will continue on with the agenda. Sheriff's Office.
Good morning, Mr. Chair and other members of the board. Two items in front of you this morning. The first one is for the board to approve a resolution declaring a state of emergency, and that is in conjunction with the damages caused by spring flooding and so forth. And I'll just give you an update from the emergency manager. He couldn't be here this morning. So far, we've heard from Belgrade Township, Nicollet Township, and Cortland Township having damages. Total damage reported so far for townships is approximately 82,000, but this number more than likely will go up as not all damages have estimates yet. North Mankato, St. Peter, Cortland, and Nicollet cities have also reported damage, but waiting on dollar amounts from those cities. I did hear from St. Peter this morning. They came in with a number of 53,000. So, and we're still waiting for damages from the county, but we have to wait till water levels go down before these areas can be evaluated. The threshold for state public assistance for Nicollet County is $61,854, and the threshold for federal assistance is $123,708. So it appears that more than likely we'll meet those thresholds. So this morning, I would need you to approve the resolution that was included in your packet declaring a state of emergency for Nicollet County.
I'll move.
We have a motion.
Second.
We have a second. Any additional discussion?
Question, City of Lafayette hasn't come up with anything yet, because they had problems.
They haven't reported anything to us at this time. And I know Justin and myself will be at the township board meeting tomorrow night, and I'm sure we'll address this again.
Thank you.
You're pretty confident by all outward appearances that we're going to meet both thresholds by the time we're all done, right?
Yep.
So, thank you. Any additional? Hearing, did you get it right? No. Okay. All those in favor of the motion for the resolution, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carries unanimously. Thanks, Dave.
Thank you.
Next item.
Second item is requesting approval of the 2018 State of Minnesota Federal Boating Safety Supplemental Equipment Grant Agreement. This is to allow us to purchase 16 new life vests for all the officers and our boats in the county. Replace those they need to be replaced every so often. This grant will allow us to pay for that. The dollar amount of the grant is $2,654.
That was not a matching grant?
That was not a matching grant, correct.
So moved. We have a motion, we have a second. Any other discussion? All those in favor signify by saying.
I'm
sorry, go ahead.
I wanted to sneak in there if you don't mind.
Please.
Commissioner, Mr. Lang, how long do these items usually last? Well, how long are they durable for?
They say you should replace them about every 10 years.
10?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Any additional? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carries unanimously. Thank you.
That's all I got. Thank you.
Thank you, Sheriff Lang. Let's see. I see a head moving. That must be Cassie's turn again. Good morning.
Good morning. So this morning I have a request approving a resolution authorizing Minnesota Valley Action Council as the grantee and administrator of funds available through the Minnesota Housing Finance Agency Family Homelessness Prevention and Assistance Program in Nicollet County. Would you like me to read the resolution?
I don't think we need the resolution. Just as a highlight, this is an ongoing grant cycle with our provider and also, I should say, with the grantor and the provider, correct?
Correct, and this is for the South Central region.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Mr. Chair, as a member of the Minnesota Valley Action Council Board, I'll move for approval.
We have a motion.
Second.
We have a second. Any other discussion or other questions? Commissioner Morrow.
There's some statistics mentioned in the, could you go through those statistics quickly?
Sure, yes. So according to the homeless prevention report that we received, which is 20 months into a 24-month grant cycle, the following statistics are for Nicollet County. We've had 171 individuals screened for homelessness. Of those clients, we had 44 who were placed on the coordinated entry system for services, and there were 33 clients who were served through a one-time funding assistance and 2 clients who received funding for rapid housing.
If I may follow up.
Please.
And if you don't know the next part, I can certainly, we can talk about this at a later meeting, but in that I count about 79 people, 44 plus 33. The other 100 were screened, but there was another avenue for them?
Correct, yes, because people have to meet a certain qualification for the program. I believe I have that. So we had a handful of individuals who didn't qualify. There was no qualifying crisis. There has to be a crisis within the 2-week period. We had people who were over income, and we had people who would not be able to budget accordingly to maintain housing, and so then there would be a separate avenue for their assistance.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
So just, may I ask then, all of those clients that applied had been serviced in some way, shape, or form? We've had contact, they were just not simply turned away?
Right, yes, there would be other services offered.
Thank you. Any other questions?
Well, and Mr. Chair, do we reach everyone? Or do we know that there's some people that are just invisibly homeless?
I would assume that there are people in our county who we are not aware of who are in need of assistance. I think we do our best by word of mouth and by just communication through other partners to reach everybody that we can.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
I'm good. Anything else? Marie? Nothing? Call, well, let's see. All those in favor of the resolution signify by saying aye.
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 Motion carries unanimously. Thank you very much for your effort.
Thank you.
And the information. Well, let's see. I think we are fast approaching property services, and Ms. Landcamer is joining us.
Good morning, Mr. Chair, members of the board. I have one item before you to set June 25th of 2019 at 10 a.m. for the 911 ordinance amendment public hearing. We've contacted and met with our local hunting shack cluster owners and reviewed the proposed ordinance, and they are comfortable with us moving forward, and that was kind of the big hurdle at this point, so now we're comfortable moving forward and setting a public hearing.
So moved.
We have a motion.
Second.
We have a second. Public hearing date, that's adjacent to a regular board meeting, is it not?
Correct.
Yes. Do we have any other potential conflicts? I'm gonna look at Jackie. If there's anything, we're good? Okay. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carries unanimously. Thank you so much for your
Thank you.
time. Well, I didn't even ask him up, and here he pops up. Good morning.
I'm paying attention. Good morning, Mr. Chair, members of the board and staff. One item from Public Works today, and that is to discuss potential purchase of snow blowing equipment. This is a continuation of our lengthy discussion at the March 19th board workshop. I'm going to go kind of back through some of the information that I presented at the board workshop, and then provide some additional new information. So with the last terrible winter we've had has been again reminded me of the great need the highway department has for snow blowing equipment, as we currently have no snow blowing equipment. I've been through 11 winters with the county, and we could have made use of this equipment for a vast majority of those. I've been looking off and on over these years for used loader and truck mounted units, but is almost impossible or very rare to actually find good used snow blowing equipment. McQueen Equipment is the dealer for Snow-Go and Oshkosh, and had lengthy discussions with them about the potential for used units, but they said over the last 10 years they've only received one used loader mounted blower, and the unit that came in was 40 plus years old and basically shot. This equipment is well built and doesn't receive, just tons of hours every year. So entities tend to keep these units until they're truly worn out. Currently for snow removal, we rely on trucks and motor graders with one-ways and V-plows, also underbodies and wings. We also utilize our loaders and dozer to push back snow, but we run into issues using just this equipment. The V-plows are hard on the equipment because it's like a battering ram. Pushing snow results in bigger piles, which cause deeper drifts, which just exacerbates our issues. When we're pushing snow back from the roads through our ditches, those utilities get covered up, and then they end up getting hit, which we have to pay to repair. Our dozer works well, but again, limited on how much ground we can actually cover, because we have to load that dozer on the lowboy, chain it up, and move it to every site. Also, our guardrails and bridge railings get packed with snow, which can definitely reduce their effectiveness. So myself and staff have been discussing the need for blowing equipment for years and quite intently over this last winter. It is our recommendation, like we had at the board workshop, that we look at possibly purchasing one loader mounted unit and one truck mounted unit. This combination, in our opinion, is the most efficient combination of blowers that helps with our needs, and it's equipment that will be used even during typical winters with typical snowfalls. It's more than just blowing out big drifts, it's blowing out intersections, guardrails, bridge railings, and urban road sections that all pose issues during most winters. Now, during the last board workshop, several questions were asked by board members that I needed to follow up on, and I have answers to those questions. The first question was, what do surrounding agencies have? We polled 25 agencies in our area, 21 counties, 3 cities, and the MnDOT maintenance office out of Mankato. Of those entities, 31 loader mounted blowers, which are mainly Snow-Go blowers, are owned, 5 tractor blowers, and then 22 truck mounted blowers, which are mainly Oshkosh Snow-Go setups. And what each agency has really depends on a bunch of factors: topography, how much wind does that county typically see, number of out shops, and location of those shops around the county. Number two, second question, do we have room to house these blowers? We will make room. We have several trailers that we do keep inside now that we can put outside. They're much less prone to environmental degradation than having the blowers sit out. If we couldn't confidently say that we had a place to house these blowers inside year-round, we would be waiting until there was room to do that, but we can make room for those. Does this eliminate road projects from being completed in the 5-year plan? No, this does not eliminate or delay any projects in the 5-year road and bridge capital improvement plan. The funding that is proposed to be used was not earmarked for any particular project or need. And myself and Ryan will touch on funding more towards the end of this presentation. How can we justify purchasing this equipment when we're running a yearly shortage of $3.5 million for capital road and bridge projects? First, not only do we have an obligation to make capital improvements to our roads and bridges, we must also maintain them year-round. This equipment will make our snow removal operations more efficient, reduce our liability in damaged utilities, increase safety at intersections obstructed by snow, regain functionality and crashworthiness to our guardrails and bridge railings, and provide mobility quicker to our residents and the traveling public. Again, Ryan and myself will be explaining, proposing that this equipment be funded from road and bridge reserves. We have typically used reserves to fund out of the ordinary or one-time type issues. This equipment is outside of our ordinary equipment replacement schedule that we budget for on a yearly basis. And the fifth question that was asked, why are we considering this equipment for an epic historic winter, as this last winter was, that may only happen every 4 to 5 years? We aren't. This equipment will be utilized most winters and does have the capabilities, though, for those epic and historic winters that we do see. And I don't know if there was any other questions that were posed that I missed or did not write down, that if you have them, I'm more than happy to answer those.
Mr. Chair, can I ask a question? Please. Just thought of it, since Byron is here with the township, would the townships be able to ask our help if they have a problem area?
It's definitely a possibility. We also receive some assistance, since we don't have blowers now, from our city friends. So yes, we would take those on a case-by-case basis if there's a particular spot that needs some attention.
Thank you.
So I'll move on to...
Hold on a second.
Oh, sure. Go ahead.
Are you still talking about this issue?
Yeah, I can ask questions anytime.
Okay. Go ahead.
Okay. I was going to go on to more of the details on the exact equipment that we're looking for, and cost and state contract pricing and whatnot. So again, we're recommending 2 different types of units. The first would be a Snow-Go loader-mounted blower. It's a model MP. These units, of course, mounted on our big loader. They're great for blowing out intersections or other problem areas where you can reach out a bit past the shoulder. They will fit. This unit would fit on any of our 3 large loaders. When you're moving this loader down the road with a blower on it, your top speed is around 15 miles an hour. To put an order in, you're looking at a 4 to 5 month delivery time. The state contract ends at the end of this year, 2019. The cost for one of those units is $220,000. The other unit that we're recommending is an Oshkosh truck chassis, which then you mount a Snow-Go TU3 blower attachment to that. The Oshkosh chassis is a 4-wheel drive, all-steer, heavy-duty truck chassis. It has a road speed 40 to 50 miles per hour. One thing we have looked and spec'd out if we are to get this unit is that we would have a quick attach front hitch put on the front of the truck that you could easily take the blower off and mount a front plow and a wing if needed. There are ongoing discussions, as you guys are aware, that there's a potential that a deal may be worked out to possibly take Trunk Highway 22 back from 169 to Trunk Highway 111, which would add significant miles to our system and would have to be plowed. This unit, if needed, could have a front plow and wing purchased to help with those needs. So it's not just a blowing unit, it has some versatility for us. The Oshkosh chassis, it's a minimum 7-month or more delivery time, and then once the chassis would be received, the Snow Go blower unit would need to be attached. So you're looking at anywhere probably from 8 to 12 months from when you put those orders in to actually getting the unit. State contract on the chassis ends at the end of this month. Typically, when they renegotiate those state contracts, there is definitely a price increase typically with those, and I've seen it anywhere from probably 2 to 10% depending on what the equipment is. And if you're talking just a 5% increase on just the chassis alone, you're probably looking at an additional $15,000 or more just in that renegotiated contract price for the chassis. State contract then on the Snow Go TU3 blower attachment ends at the end of January 2020. Total cost of that unit is $742,000. So total cost for both units is $962,000. This equipment is well built and lasts. It is evident in the fact that you can't find good used units because they're run until they basically die, and numerous entities have truck-mounted blower units that are 30 plus years old and they're still going. At first glance, $962,000 is a very big number, but this is the way I like to look at it and how I ask the board members to consider it. If we keep these units for 30 years and look at that cost on an annual basis, take 962 divided by 30, you're looking at $32,000 per year. And the question I ask myself and I'd ask the board is investing $32,000 a year in our snow and ice maintenance operations to increase our efficiency, reduce our liability in damaged utilities, increase safety at intersections that have site obstructions due to snow piles, regain functionality and crashworthiness to our guardrails and bridge railings, and to provide mobility quicker to our residents. Is that $32,000 a year worth it? I wouldn't be up here in front of you recommending this if I didn't think that was very much the case. And so that's kind of my spiel. I'm willing to answer any questions. Ryan can go through how we propose funding these units.
Yeah, I do. Okay. Do you want to talk about funding first, Ryan?
Go ahead.
Well, thank you, Seth, for breaking that down. A couple of observations. One, you've mentioned the state contract several times.
Yes.
I take it what you mean by that is there's a price available up to a certain date. After that date, most likely the price would go up under
Yes.
a new state contract.
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
You've talked about using one potential of using the reserve. And the reserve, at least from the state auditor recommendation, our current reserve is 2 to 3 times what the state auditor would recommend. Even if we were to make this purchase, our reserve would be at least twice as much as the state auditor would recommend. Does that sound roughly right?
That's correct.
Yes.
Okay. You mentioned a number of reasons for doing this, and I think safety was your number 3. I'm going to tell you, for me, safety is going to be the number 1 if this purchases go forward, because we are making a choice between road construction, maintenance, and equipment, and I think there's probably a legitimate argument that you can have great roads, but they're not safe to drive on. They don't do you very much good. So if I'm going to be supporting this, it's going to be for the safety reason that you mentioned as your 3rd reason. But I think we still need to note there's a lack of state funding for roads and bridges that puts counties in this position, and I'd like to thank my fellow commissioners for helping build a reserve that would allow for this decision to even be made. And I would reiterate what Commissioner Kolars would say: we need more funding for roads and bridges. Finally, you mentioned the facility and being able to take some equipment out that you currently have stored inside, which I think is going to probably bring us at some point to a return to the question, do we need a new facility or need to expand a facility? And then finally, I would thank you, as you were mentioning wings and putting wings on plows. My recent experience on the plow showed me how valuable those wings are. I had no clue. And again, I would thank your crew for allowing me to find that out.
Sure, anytime.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
John, do you have anything?
Well, I'll just make a few comments. Well, I talked to Mike Suska about this, your main guy.
Yep.
And I was just thinking, well, it's gonna be the rural areas where there's problems and there's intersections. And it's just south of me, at least twice this year, there was a major drift. You guys have gotten stuck and had to call another truck out from their area. And he says, yeah, that's a concern, but he said it's also on the edges of Mankato and, or North Mankato and St. Peter, because you can't really wing the stuff out. So it would help, it would serve all of our taxpayers in one way or another.
Yeah.
And I have a snow blower that I bought, I think in 1999 or 2000, and I had 0 repairs on it. And I made my first adjustment on it this year. And if I have a year where where I don't use it, well, I didn't burn up that fuel, I didn't put wear and tear on the tractor, and I wasn't out there freezing because I don't have a cab on it. So if we have the good equipment, I kind of figure it's like 911 service. We have 911 service every minute of every day, and there's probably only a couple of hundred really serious calls that come in, well, per year or per month or whatever. And I kind of rate this the same way. So I hate to spend money, but I support transportation, I support safety. So I'll make the motion when we get that far.
Commissioner Kolars, you seem to be in discussion mode. Would you like to discuss?
Well, I appreciate the commissioners who have, thank you, Mr. Chair, who have talked about this. I think I came into today thinking that I would be supportive of the $220,000 purchase that would get us started. But now in listening to the presentation, visiting a little bit, it seems like the 700 and, what was that number?
42.
$740,000 investment probably gives us more satisfaction, because it sounds like Nicollet County is on an island without a snow blower in our region here. And I'm sorry that you folks have had to put up with that, and feel bad that the residents and motorists have not had this this item to carry us through bad winters like this one, and apparently another one that's coming tomorrow night here in the middle of April. So I'm open to the idea.
One more comment, Mr. Chair. I had a conversation with a gentleman from Ridgely Township, and he said, don't forget Ridgely Township. And Ridgely Township from St. Peter is 40-plus miles.
Yeah, and from our Klausner shop, it's probably...
Yeah, but it'd be 3 hours
60.
with a payloader.
Well, exactly right. That's, then you make that point. Maureen, did you have?
I still have concerns because I think this should go through the budget process and not be, and be on that 5-year, 10-year, whatever plan it is for equipment replacement. I do see the need, I just don't like the cost, and I don't like the fact that we're doing it after the fact and not through that process. I think our first answer, if the townships need our assistance, should be we'll get there when we can, not when we can. Because they're probably gonna need it more than we do at some point, in some places. I have trouble with the $1 million, I just do.
If I might rejoin you, so we're talking about reserve monies, right?
I have trouble spending that when we have trouble funding our roads too.
I understand, and that's kind of where I came from. Did you want to weigh in on that?
Right, typically we use,
Let's
sorry,
just,
Mr. Chairman.
I just had a housekeeping question when I was running my note. On the self-propelled device, the Oshkosh you were recommending, you're also talking about an all-steer device? That's a little different than, I'm not sure.
No, that's what we were what I had presented before at
Which
the...
means both the front and back axles articulate?
Yes, it gives you a much tighter
turning
radius,
radius.
and then you can also blow in a crab steer type position,
Right.
where your front tires are offset with the blower, your back tires are offset, keep them on the road. It definitely helps with keeping you from getting stuck, and even times helping you get out if you drop.
And just as a procedural thing, was that a considerable a considerably greater expense than had we had a conventional steering axle on the device?
When you get into four-wheel drive, all steered,
It's kinda
I
not a
think it's probably a $20,000 or $25,000 option.
Gotcha.
But the operators that I've talked to that run these units, the ones that don't have it want it, and the ones that have it love it.
Gotcha. Thank you. I'm sorry. We were still kind of in housekeeping mode now. I think we want to go to.
I think Marie had raised a legitimate concern, and when we talked about reserves for capital purchases, is where this would come from, not from tax levy.
Right, our reserves get built each year from leftover tax levy that we
Yeah.
don't
Our
use.
reserves are tax levy dollars, they're just sitting there.
Old ones.
Yeah.
Yep. Or they're excess revenue that we captured in a year that we didn't expect. So over time, they get built, and my recommendation always is every year is that we use reserves for one-time expenditures, be it typically capital expenditures like this. We're using reserves this year for our remodeling projects that we're doing next door and in the basement, and for our parking lot as well, because again, they're one-time purchases that I don't ever recommend that we increase the levy for specifically, especially when we've got a healthy reserve balance that allows us to make those purchases without specifically going out and increasing taxes.
Can I then ask the comparison, because I see two line items here. One using reserves, and then the other was the issue of using the wheelage tax.
Correct. Wheelage tax is basically has the same flexibility as tax levy. It has to be used in road and bridge functions, but it can be used for construction or maintenance under statute. Sales tax has to be used for construction only. So wheelage tax is an eligible revenue source for this, but either one would work. The cash reserves that we've built up over time, or the wheelage tax that we've built up.
Yes, so Mr. Chair, if we did spend $742,000 and ordered it May 1st or whenever you would order that set, and it got here after next winter is over, does that machine do anything else? Can it bale hay or mow lawns, or it just sits and?
Yeah.
And we have, Mr. Chair, we have other equipment that is seasonal. Our chip spreader that we share with the city of North Mankato, our distributor truck, which I believe we share with the city of North Mankato. We have several tractors that only get used during the summer. Minnesota's a very seasonal state, so we have seasonal specific equipment. But the nice piece is this is very versatile, that we can put a plow on the front. So a new plow truck, if we were to go out to purchase one, if we add mileage someday, is with all the attachments is $250, $300.
It's well over 300,000.
Is it 300 now? Yeah. So potentially we
Well,
would
we
avoid.
budget for one every year, we should know that, shouldn't we?
Right.
Well, if you're talking flat out, when I give you that number, that takes in account trade-in values and all
Okay.
that.
Right.
I don't have all
250
that
stuck in my
data
mind.
right.
Yeah, that's
in
what
front
trade.
of me, so.
Okay.
So potentially we're maybe saving the cost of making that additional investment down the road if we do add mileage.
You know,
Mr.
one-
Chair, I'm sorry.
Oh, go ahead, Commissioner.
Mr. Chair, I think it's really important that we have this conversation on $1 million investment. Were you suggesting, Mr. Chair, that monies would come from reserve and wheelage, some sort of mix?
And that's where I was trying to see where we had some consensus. It's, as my recollection, the wheelage collection was higher than anticipated initially, and that the wheelage dollars were not encumbered as of yet from the 2018 revenue, or were they already encumbered? You have to remind me of that.
So the number I have here, the 878, that includes an estimate of our wheelage tax for 2018. And then the wheelage tax for 2019 that's in the budget, the 275,000, that's half of what we take in. The other half is already being used in Road and Bridge for maintenance and, well, basically maintenance and operation. So it's really another option. In the end, it's essentially a shell game.
Right, and I understand that, but I'm, and that's what I'm asking. Are we denying anything going forward, regardless of how we use the funding mechanism, that would inhibit our performance to date? I see Seth, to the best of my recollection, has said, no, we have all the encumbrances that we'd anticipated, and we should still be good. Is that a reasonable statement?
Yes, sir, I wouldn't be up here.
I understand that, but I
change.
just want everybody
Yep.
to be very clear about that we're not taking anything away. This is an exceptional expense. I absolutely acknowledge that, but the other part of it is, this is an ongoing need. Next year, in some cases, several months from now, this is not gonna be a cheaper proposition.
No.
I mean, that becomes the reality of what we're spending these dollars for. Having worked in public service for a lot of years, yes, we've had, and I've been exposed to this, where we've had equipment that's been 20 years and 30 years and 40 years of life. North Mankato had one that was an antique when they took it on, and they rebuilt it, and still they're running the equipment that dates back, part of it, to the 40s. So that's the reality of where it is, and my personal bias is I think we need to make that acquisition because, again, it adds to the safety. It also adds to the safety and the greater efficiency, which is part of our mantra, the safety of our citizens. I'm using fewer man hours, resources to operate this because I've got one operator. If I'm trucking a dozer all over the county, I'm usually probably using at least 2 people, if not 3, to get it loaded, chained, and moved. That also becomes an efficiency of operation. So that's, for me, where I support that in that particular issue. Commissioner?
Did you want to say something?
No, go ahead, Commissioner.
To build on that, and I'd like to build on something Commissioner Lipke said. The 15-mile-an-hour option, to me, seems partial at best when you talk about places like Ridgely Township. You're simply not going to be able to get around the county with that.
Not just that unit, no. And if, as you look at other entities, they have various combinations of loader blowers and truck mounted blowers, and then you start looking at where shops are located. Some have, 4 or 5 shops, dispersed through the county, and they can put, loader mounted blowers on their loader, and they don't have to road as far, and that's how they accomplish it. Others have 2 truck mounted blowers and maybe 1 loader mounted blower. So every situation's a little bit different. And in our case, from us actually being out there and looking at our system and shop placement, the loader mounted and a truck unit together appears to us to be the most efficient way to get around the county and get the work done. If we didn't see it that way and we could accomplish it with loader blowers, I would be here advocating for loader blowers, but I don't want to come here and get something that's not going to really be efficient and do the job that we ultimately need. $220,700, it's all a lot of money. The other point I would make is we've had this need for years, but we've never pressed the board to purchase it because we've had other equipment needs and items that needed to be addressed, and we've knocked a bunch of those out, and so now seems to be an advantageous time to make this purchase. Our reserves have grown over the years since I've been here, and the other reason why we're pressing this a little bit more, just by letting that state contract get renegotiated, there will be some type of price increase, and so you will automatically pay more when that is renegotiated. So if there's further discussion that wants to be had and go through a more process and wait later, you will pay more. That's just the nature of the beast, I guess. So,
Commissioner Lipke.
I'd like to see it come, or a significant money come out of the wheelage tax, because our taxpayers pay that on their cars and trucks and stuff. So it would go back to the people. It would be the dollars would be serving the people that paid them. And the question I have for you, and I think I know the answer. We talked about public safety. How about the operator's safety? That's about the best we could do for snow removal with these options.
What do you mean exactly,
Your
Commissioner?
employees that run them.
I feel like my employees are safe in all the equipment that they operate. But Yeah, there's probably some additional safety if you aren't using a V-plow, and as you saw in the video, the motor grader sliding significantly to the side when you hit those big drifts and whatnot. Not to say that we're not going to use V-plows at all once this purchase is made, but we will all work together to do it in the most efficient manner that we can.
I had a conversation with a commissioner from Western Minnesota. He said, "Oh, just get a big tractor and a rear mount blower." And I've already had close calls just backing in my driveway with a tractor and a rear mount blower because of the traffic.
Trying to blow snow in a rear mount blower with your head turned around for
works in a farmyard,
12 hours a day for 7 days a week. You're going to need a chiropractor for
plus
some significant amount of time.
Collisions are much more possible.
Yes.
Thank you.
And a big tractor blower, they're not cheap either. So if you invest in a 400 horsepower tractor with a big enough blower to go on that, you're talking significant dollars there also. None of this is cheap. It just isn't.
Mr. Chair, there are 5 folks who live in the rural area who probably experienced a lot of snow this year. Would you be interested in having the county spend these types of dollars? Just raise your hand if you think it's a good idea. Couple of shrugs, right? That's kind of where we're at, you know.
Okay, so you're in the same boat we are. I mean, it's a lot of money. It's the other reality of it, but yet it's trying to find that efficiency and the safety issue that we're concerned about. So, do you have anything else, Ryan, that you'd like to share? Finances. So, correct me if I'm wrong. We're pretty convinced that either way we choose, if we choose to go forward, our funding mechanism could come either directly from the Public Works fund balance and or the wheelage tax. Is that correct?
Correct.
And is there a benefit or a utilization issue that would behoove us to use one versus the other, or would a mix make more sense? Or are there any restriction issues that would be a problem for us?
Yeah, it's either option is fine. We have had discussions in budget committee about earmarking wheelage tax for future construction.
Right.
So this would be a slight deviation from that. So if we wanted to continue down that path, because we know we have construction needs, our fund balance, just in the regular fund balance, is more than adequate to cover this. So I would recommend we take it from there and try to keep that wheelage tax for construction projects like we've had discussions on.
I see heads nodding. John, I think you'd indicated you were interested in making a motion.
I move that we go with the project with both the items that you presented to us.
And do you want to talk about where those, as part of your motion, where those funds would come from?
I don't think I want to put a halter on it quite yet.
Okay. We have a motion.
Well, I'll second so I can ask a question.
We have a second.
Ryan, does it make a difference to you whether this motion talks about the source of the funding?
Well, when year-end 19 happens, we'll have to move the money from somewhere. I think we need a motion probably. For this level of money, we should probably have a motion where it comes from.
Do you want to do those as separate? Is that cleaner?
It'd be just as easy to do it in one. But
Would like a 50-50?
Well, I think we complicate it. I put the wheelage tax money in there really to help illustrate the funds that the county does have available. Missing from this is 1.3 million of sales tax from last year too.
Which we can't
So I wanted to lay this out just to help illustrate.
Sure. Right.
I would say that our typical procedure is to take from the general fund balance whenever we have a capital purchase, and when we have a fund that truly is a restricted fund on our financial statements like the wheelage tax, that we try to earmark that for what the statutes allow, and our past discussion has been to use that for future construction, because we know.
I'd change it to move that we use the general fund if my second agrees with that.
Yeah, either way, we have to do this, whether we have to move to amend it.
Well,
We have a
so-
motion and a second.
Right.
We can do a second motion then.
You wanna do the second motion?
That's fine.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to make the acquisition as recommended by our engineer.
From the Public Works fund balance, correct?
Well, that was
Just
gonna be
said
the
we could do a
second,
second
that was
motion.
gonna be the second
Oh,
motion.
you are gonna do a second?
Right.
Instead of amending it.
Okay, fine.
Is that acceptable? You
That's fine.
okay?
Sure.
Yep, I'm fine.
All right. We have a motion, we have a second. Do we have additional discussion?
So this, Mr. Chair, is for.
This is merely the commission, or the commitment of making the acquisition. The next issue will be, where do we pay for it?
The question that I was asking, excuse me, $962,000.
Yes.
Is what you're talking about.
Question, Mr. Chair? If we do this and it passes, you think we can probably eliminate one of our trading in our, put it back a year, our trading in our plow trucks?
I would have to talk with staff about that. Usually when we're looking at trading in plow trucks, they got 12 to 13 years, and by that 12th and 13th year, they need to go down the road.
But this should put less wear on them in the future if we're using these blowers for some of the problems.
Yes.
Okay, thank
But
you.
that's not an absolute.
No,
in all
nothing's an
fairness.
absolute in my department, it seems.
Do we have any other discussion on that motion? Hearing none. I'm sorry, Jeff.
Call the question.
Lipke,
Yes.
Morrow,
Yes.
Kohlers,
Yes.
Drentel,
No.
Kell.
Yes. Our next item,
Mr. Chair, I would move that we fund this purchase through the Public Works fund balance.
I'll second that.
we have a motion, we have a second. Any additional discussion?
Mr. Chair, I'll just say that I'll support it because I think it gives us more mobility to handle what the problems are going to present themselves. So that's changed my position when I walked in here.
Any other discussion? Hearing none, call the roll.
Morrow,
Yes.
Lipke.
Yes.
Kohlers,
Yes.
Drentel,
No.
Kell.
Yes. Motion carries 4-1. That should conclude that item. Did you have anything else for us, Tom?
No, not today, Mr.
Thank you
Chair.
very much for your time and your diligence in getting us the information we sought. I know for my peers, it's a hard decision, it's a lot of money, but I really appreciate everyone's willingness to look beyond the election cycle and looking into the fact of what's the long-term benefit for our county, and we think we've made that choice. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Chair, could we have 10 minutes?
We're just about to go
Is,
to
I think we're just about ready to drainage anyhow, right? So let's take 10 minutes and recess. I'd like to call the, where are we here? We're at the Drainage Authority meeting to order. We have a couple of Drainage Authority items today. Our first one being the consent agenda.
Move it.
We have a motion.
Second.
We have a second. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Motion carries. Our next item, I believe the updated material was in your blue packet, for those of you that are following along. And this, we'll have Jackie give us the synopsis. Thank you.
Thank
for
you,
coming.
Mr.
How are
Chair,
you? You're good.
member of the boards. I'm good. Yes, in your blue packets is an amendment to the spreadsheet. There was a formula issue, so if you want to refer to those, the new packet. But I am here for approval to pay a partial damage payment to landowners. This payment would be for 2017 and 2018 planned crop and soil damage. And what that means is this is where initially with the final engineer's report, where the tile was going through, where we knew there would be damages to be paid. As you heard, yes, this project has gone longer, so we think there's some due diligence that we should get those 17 and 18 payments out there. Like I said, this is a partial payment. This may be a partial payment for some landowners at this time. I would ask for approval to pay those 17 and 18 planned soil and crop damages.
So moved.
We have a motion.
Second.
We have a second. Discussion.
The number, Mr. Chair, of 166,413.88 is the number we're talking about?
I'm sorry, it's 170,416 cents. That was the amended spreadsheet in here.
Oh, thank you. 170.
170,416 cents.
And just so I'm clear, question for either Jackie or Madam County Attorney. This is the projected payments. This doesn't mean that this is the end-all be-all. There are still other issues that potentially need to be resolved as we roll into ongoing years, that there may be some other considerations. Is that a reasonable statement?
This is just reflective of those damages that were anticipated in that final and
Okay.
report.
Very good. Any other
Mr.
questions?
Chair, just to follow up, if I may, Mr. Chair, for those 2 years, 17 and 18.
17 and 18, correct.
Right. Okay. Any other questions? Hearing none, call the roll.
Lipke?
Yes.
Drenthal?
Yes.
Morrow?
Yes.
Colars?
Yes.
Count.
Yes. Thank you.
Thank you.
Do we have an anticipated dispersal date?
I will work with finance landowners. We do need W-9s for the ones that we don't have. So ones that we do have W-9s for, we will get those out as soon as possible within the next week or two. If we don't have a W-9, we'll contact them to get their W-9.
Between that process.
Yeah.
Very good. Thank you. I see nothing else on our agenda. Move to adjourn the Drainage Authority meeting.
So moved.
We have a motion, second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And thank you very much. We will now reconvene our board meeting. And I believe at the top of the order is our administrator.
Nothing additional other than I attended the AMC leadership conference last week along with 3 other commissioners and staff. And I thought it was excellent. Very good information, and I always enjoy attending that each year. So thank you for allowing the staff to go. We all enjoyed it.
Good. Informational items other than, well, I guess it's my story to tell. So my history with serving the group is our joint Sibley County Board meeting, our multi-county HRA South Central EMS. We also were serving, I also served on the Electronic Communication Board hearing, South Central EMS, our extension outlook, and I had an MRCI board meeting yesterday. So that was my list of things. So, Commissioner Kolars.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Joint Sibley meeting on March 26th in Gaylord with the board. We had our AMC training in North Mankato. Commissioner Kemp Lipke and I were there in North Mankato on the 27th. And many of us attended the Leadership Summit in Nisswa, April 2nd through the 5th. If you allow, Mr. Chair, I'd like to at least report to you that 41 of the 87 Minnesota counties have now discussed and moved to approve the AMC transportation funding resolution, including 8 of the 10 counties here in District 7. I believe it's 9 because Martin County tells me that they did it. They just haven't reported yet up to St. Paul, up to the AMC office. And we are leaps and bounds ahead of other districts in the state of Minnesota with 9 of 10 of our counties who are moving forward in that direction. McLeod is the last one to act. Thank you.
And I would personally like to thank you, Jack, for spearheading that as also the district chair, and it was in no small effort on your part for doing that, and it is very much appreciated by myself and ultimately by our constituency.
Thank you.
Marie?
I have nothing to add at this time.
Joint Sibley County Board meeting.
Yep.
Talking with both executive and legislative branch folks about our legislative priorities for this year. And interesting conversations with constituents about broadband and transportation funding.
Super.
Okay. Was also in Gaylord with the rest of you, and Marie and I had Jack and Marie and I had a short ditch meeting ahead of that. Went to the AMC leadership thing in North Mankato. Danny and I visited with Lisa Dirks at the extension office in Mankato. I did my safety tests online because I'm going to be gone when the safety things are here in early May. Went to the county attorney's meeting on ditch 62A last week ago, Monday, I think. And I was with a couple of you at AMC in Nesswa. And I'm getting, believe it or not, a lot more questions about when is County Road 12 going to open up. There's also a comment, some person asked me if they were going to name the lake after me.
Sounds like a plan.
Yeah, I think so.
It's got a name already.
We'll
so.
sell
Lake
names.
Lipke? That should be good on a map, right?
Mr. Chair, I think our engineer wants to comment on that.
Well, you could name the road, it could be the John Lipke Memorial.
Not memorial.
Maybe.
Well, I was gonna tell
Depends
you.
upon how quickly you get it built. I'm sorry, you
We're
were.
still on schedule to start construction in 2020. That's
Okay.
the ultimate goal. We got a long ways to go to put everything together to make that happen, but no major roadblocks at this point that would slow us down from hitting that. I will tell you that there's more water in there now than at its highest point in 2018. It's almost 4 inches deeper than at its max point in 2018. So it's continuing to go up.
Measure it again in 10 days.
Yeah.
Bust out the water skis, she'll be deep enough.
Probably, yeah.
As long as Seth is talking, are we doing okay on the bridge replacement by Fort Ridgely?
We're working on that.
Okay.
Met with the DNR and then lots of email correspondence. The DNR is requiring that we do a phase 1 cultural resource survey, so I hired Bolton and Mink to assist us to do that. And then there is questions about who actually owns the existing highway and who owns the parkland and who has easements where, because as Bolton and Mink has dove into that part of it, they're developing the descriptions for the additional right-of-way that we need, is that we're finding that 1930s or earlier, County Road 21 was a state highway, and that, of course, was under state control, state highway easement, but the state highway easement covered like 34 plus acres and covered a big chunk of what's Fort Ridgely State Park. And the district office, working along with the MnDOT Council in St. Paul, is looking in to find if there's any record of that highway easement being transferred to the county. So there is the potential that we may not have to purchase any additional right-of-way, that the state has the easement. If that's truly the case, it's probably gonna take a while for them to transfer any, easement ownership to us. What they probably do is issue a permit to work within their road easement right-of-way. But that's still all being worked out. So yeah, potentially we might not have to buy easements from the DNR. But those are the hurdles that we're working through right now. We've got the final bridge plans back. We have some additional sheets to add to that plan for the approach grading and whatnot. But cultural resources and easement is the outstanding items. And yeah, that's delaying our process a little bit. We're hoping maybe that July or August that the project could be underway, but it's a little up in the air right now.
Will that cultural survey that was unanticipated costs that we will have to bear as part of the project?
Yes, phase one is a modest amount. I believe the little contract I executed with Bolton and Mink was for like $3,300.
So that might be offset by the savings from the easement transfers.
Yeah,
Maybe.
it's
Okay.
quite fascinating when you dive back in that old history. Even the DNR wasn't aware of this whole.
Well, again, thank you for keeping us abreast and on top of those issues. Do we have meetings and conferences we need to address?
Not today.
I don't think there is. I entertain a motion for per diems and expenses.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion, we have a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
I think I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye because you want to. Thank you very much for everybody.
Thank you.
Your efforts were stellar. Thank you.